This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. So, welcome to the June 2020 edition of the Thoughtful Travellers Book Club. I am joined by the intrepid Justin Watson again because he's a very nice man who indulges me in these requests to come and chat with me.
I'm sure I'm not the only one that reads it every month, but...
No, you're not, but you're very reliable. And
well,
you
I
make
do
good
enjoy
notes.
the conversation.
Yes. And I really enjoy having someone else to talk to. And so this book, this month's book, here we have A Short Walk in the Hindu Kush by Eric Newby. I think there are probably many different versions, different covers and different editions these days, because it was published in 1958, which is even quite a long time before I was born. So that must be, my son would say that makes it too. So. Yes. And my son would say that makes it very, very, very old, I think. So
they did a 50th anniversary of the book, so...
that does. Don't say that. That does make me make it seem very old. But the funny thing about it is, it doesn't read like a very old book, does it?
No, it doesn't. I was very. I mentioned to you earlier. I was very surprised. I was expecting it to be very cringy and going, "Oh, this is like a 1950s sitcom," or just like. And I don't think it was like that. I think he did a really good job of, just respecting the people, how he described things, and a lot of humour in it that wasn't necessarily, say, racist or sexist or anything like that, which was quite good, I thought.
Absolutely, because it could easily have gone the other way, but it was mostly kind of situational humour and a lot of self-deprecating humour, the typical British kind of style. And there was a lot of scope for self-deprecating humour because they were really not good expeditioners, really.
No. There was a passage about it, and there's a couple of passages where they were talking about getting ready and whether they were ready, and there was one about how they'd done the only scrambling and walking they'd done was the Dolomites and through the Welsh landscape and everything like that, and I think the comment was something like, but he hadn't been anywhere where he failed to encounter some old ladies with a pair of umbrellas. So
I've forgotten that bit, but yes. They were, really, I think it's a miracle that they survived because there was plenty of opportunity for so many things to go wrong. And even just their basic preparedness of equipment and stuff was like it. You wouldn't do an expedition like that today.
No. I just think of going to do one of those climbing walls at one of the gyms or wherever they have the climbing walls, and you get about 2 meters off the ground, and I'm going, I'm done for the day. I'll come back down now. And they're climbing up rock faces with
there's ice and
looking ropes over rocks, and they
were, nuts, completely nuts. There's a bit that I really liked. It was kind of halfway through where he said, I'll just read this bit. I slipped behind a rock and quickly studied the section of the pamphlet on the ascent of glaciers. It was rather like last-minute revision while waiting for the doors of the examination room to open, and equally futile.
Yes. Yes, and that's another one. And I think the book was littered with lots of these little things about the humour and just how silly what they were doing was, but they were there, and
they did it.
They probably weren't going to turn. There was no turning back. But I guess they had the common sense, and I don't want to ruin it. So. The book, but yes, so they did show some common sense at some point.
They didn't they did a lot of stupid things, but they managed to not do the stupidest things because they survived.
And they survived. So
they lived to tell the tale.
Didn't want to spoil it for anyone that likes.
Well, one of my favorite lines in it, not long after that one, was the air was full of the promise of disaster. And I thought he's spot on, and really only for the tone of the book. I didn't expect disaster because the tone of the book was never it never felt like there was, impending doom.
No.
But yeah, really.
I think I mentioned in my notes that they got through the beginning of the book where they were just driving from Europe to Kabul in Afghanistan, and you read that, and there was plenty of adventure in that. And then then he writes, "Our journey's about to begin," and I'm like going, "What have you been doing?" That's
this whole thing was an amazing journey already, to get to Kabul. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I guess
they saw that as the easy bit. So
yeah, but it wasn't easy. I remember the bit where they came across that man lying on the road, for example. And what are they going to do? And there's the suspicion that maybe they killed him. And I mean, it sounds horrifying, and yet they managed to do it they managed to get through it with good humor. But I guess that's really part of it is that, an important part of it is they were traveling in an area where today we would consider parts of it really dangerous, and not just for the ill-equipped mountain climbing, but in general. So, it's like that's adventure travel
these days.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. I found, I don't know if you saw it, Justin, but I put in the Thoughtful Travelers group today a report from some mountaineers who had done a similar expedition. So I think it was 2012, if my notes are right there. So not that long ago, certainly, much more recently. And some of the dangerous parts were things like, well, we brought all our food provisions with us because it was dangerous to go to the supermarkets in Kabul because they've been targeted by insurgents. So there was all these extra problems to deal with before you even got to climbing the mountain. So it's not a journey I would have undertaken then or now, I don't think. But I'm glad they did it because it was a lot of fun to read about. So yeah. Now, Justin, you said a nice part about comparing the walks previously undertaken, and goodness, I don't know. If you can hear the shaking things here. It's thundery here in Perth, but my windows are shaking. But yes, tell me about that bit.
I think now was that the bit about
from chapter 2?
So that was the bit where, as I said, he was comparing the bit where he compares the walks to and wanting to, he hadn't been anywhere where he doesn't see the ladies twice our age armed with umbrellas. But I think I mentioned to you as well, I said that kind of stuff can stifle your sense of achievement, because I've been walked up to the top of Kosciuszko a few times myself, which for non-Australians is our tallest mountain, but at a paltry 2,000 metres and 2,200 and something metres or something around that. I don't know what that is.
I think it's a bit more, but it's under 3,000 anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically you get a chairlift up the first sort of hard bit, and then you walk about a couple of hours and you get to the top, and it's not hard. And so I've been to the top there, and then you look around, and I've seen people in wheelchairs up there, which is great, fantastic, good for them. But it doesn't help my ego.
No, it doesn't feel like I'm on top of Australia. I climbed this mountain,
and it's crowded. It's always been crowded at the top. So
yeah.
I was just saying. So it's a similar experience to what he had said in the book about how he's only ever been places where pretty much anyone can get there, and
so then his next expedition is to go where basically no one has ever been.
No one's been.
There seems to be there should be somewhere in the middle of this some extra training. But it reminded me. I probably late last year I had an interview with Susie Moore on one of the episodes, and she had been climbing in Hokkaido and done this big climb up Mount Yote with her husband, and they'd been really well prepared and all the equipment, and they were exhausted by the time they got to the top. And then they got to the top, and I can't remember exactly what they found, but it was like a Japanese guy kind of in thongs or flip-flops with his dog had kind of strolled up there, and lots of little old ladies and stuff, and they'd like been, here we are, we've made it to the top. So
I mean, I'll stroll up to the top of a hill with my all my trekking gear on, a backpack filled with food, and I've usually got a stuff in there that if I got caught out in the cold, like a reflective it's a little reflective pop-up blanket. I've got all this stuff. I've got enough food.
Impressive.
And I'm like taking it serious. And I see people going for a walk up the hill in a pair of thongs, flip-flops, and or a pair of jeans. And I'm like, have I over-prepared for this?
Or have they underprepared?
Underprepared, yeah.
It could be either, couldn't it? So,
yes. And I think these guys, I don't know, these guys seem to prepare pretty well, but they seem to have a lot of stuff they were carting around. I don't know how they were moving it all. I think on horse, but
yeah, there was I don't think it's how you would run an expedition today. Let's just say that. So yeah. I have to mention a couple of bits of language that I particularly loved because I just love them. So, I mean, amongst the humour, some of the descriptions were just so apt and so clever. I've got a bit from when they were doing their practice climbing in Wales, which is probably not enough practice climbing, but anyway, they did it. And he was talking about one of the cliffs they were going to try and climb, and he said, it was as if a giant had been smoothing the sides of a heap of cement with a trowel and had then lost patience and left it half finished. And it's just such a beautiful image. Like you can see exactly what those cliffs and rock look like. And I just love that kind of language. So just beautiful.
There was a lot of very good descriptions like that in the book.
Definitely. Very fresh and engaging. Yeah, I really loved it. The other thing that I've got written down on those early part of the notes is because they mentioned Australians, and so it was very intriguing to me. They were talking about the cook they wanted to hire to take with them, and he usually worked for an Australian in Kabul, maybe, or anyway, wherever they were. Anyway, kind of, urban Afghanistan. And Hugh said, it's only for a month, as if this was some extenuation for robbing a man of his cook. Besides, he's an Australian. And Eric replies, well, what's that got to do with it? Doesn't seem to make it any more legitimate to me. And Hugh says, I mean, being an Australian, he's pretty certain to be an easygoing sort of fellow. And, and I thought, that's kind of amazing that in the 1950s, we had that reputation, whether it's right or wrong.
Yeah.
But I think it's a reputation that culturally kind of follows us today as Australians. And that easygoing nature, laid back.
Someone who's not Australian would have to confirm or deny that. But,
yes. I can see Joan is listening. So, Joan, confirm or deny, do you think Australians as a stereotype are laid back and easygoing? This will be a good test. Anyone else who's listening who's non-Australian, that would be awesome. Let us know. I mean, it's definitely a stereotype you hear quite often, and it's intriguing to me that even back then, like that
even
70
in the 50s,
70 years ago, that reputation had already been established. So I kind of liked that. Yeah,
I was happy with it.
Yeah. I'll claim that. I don't know if I'm particularly easygoing, but I try to be, friendly and laid back. So kind of works. So yeah.
I mean, just on the descriptions, there was one description that I really liked about, he was somewhere in the valley, I think in the first valley, and he saw, I think they were going into a town or back, but his description was, I'll read it so it makes a bit more sense, was that there was an interval of calm while 5 women, saucy ghosts in an all-enveloping chador, with crotcheted holes for faces, rode over the bridge on horseback, each with an anxious-looking husband trotting behind on foot. And I just love that because, I guess these days there's a lot of, I guess a lot of people don't. He didn't actually judge them for being Muslims in the book, whereas in these days they do get a lot of judgment, and whether that's right or wrong, that's another thing. But yeah, he was just, and saucy ghosts is something I don't think we'd ever use to describe, and the anxious husbands, I like the fact that the anxious husbands were trotting along behind. So I just like the description because I think it was fairly complimentary, instead of being, like that the feel of those colonial time people, and they're in there and they're the boss and they're the primitives and stuff like that. You never got that in the book, and this was just another example of they were relying on the local people, and they seemed to treat them with respect, and they didn't always get the same respect back, but most of the time I think they did. So
I agree that on the whole, like, there was a lot of kind of areas where there could have been like kind of cultural cringiness, but he really it was just kind of pure description. It was just factual description, without any without kind of delving into like any, not really depicting the cultural differences as a difference, just this is what we saw. Yeah, which we don't see much today.
Because there's a little bit of the local politics because each of these valleys were like literally their own kingdom or country, and they talk about Nuristan. I'm like going, I don't know much about Nuristan, but it's literally was a valley which saw itself as a separate tribe or whatever they called themselves, and they had their valley, and then Afghanistan was all these various groups, and I guess they had all their own autonomy, and so Nuristan was the one where the locals described it as being bad, and the foreigners were like going, oh, that sounds interesting, let's go and visit there and see.
Exactly. There was no love lost between the different areas within that region by the sounds of it, but which leads me to one of my favourite little parts. It actually really harks back to how ill-equipped and ill-prepared and poorly trained they were, but they were, you might remember when they reached Nuristan on their way out, and they were basically shattered, and their feet are only blisters, and they're starving, and they're really over everything, but they're trying to decide where they should sleep. And then their guide Abdul Giyas says that they should so I'll read the bit. So Abdul Giyas said we should post sentries for the night, said Hugh when it grew dark. And Eric says, do you want to be a sentry? No, I'd rather be murdered in bed. So would I. Abdul Giyas, no sentries.
No sentries.
They don't care about the danger or anything else anymore. They are not going to stay up for a couple of hours during the night. They are shattered. They don't care that there's this, perhaps, bad blood between those groups. No, I'd rather be murdered in bed. So,
don't want to know, but if it happens, it happens. And
I think they'd reached a point where it was just, they'd had enough. I mean,
well, even the description of the food and that got like kind of, it started off sounding lovely, and then towards the end it was like they described food, and I think there was one like breakfast was abominable, and it had like sugarless tea and chocolate and twice melted chocolate and some leftover mutton. Something like that.
There were some awful combinations, and a few days in a row they just ate a whole jar of jam with nothing, just as part of it. They're just awful things. So and they did get very skinny, they said. So
yes.
I mean, they shouldn't have survived. It was, I was kind of comparing it to adventure travel today, and adventure travel today, people are prepared. They have knowledge, like a lot more knowledge. They have like a lot more like cultural training. Yeah. They know about the environment and the climate. They have telecommunications, like so different from that expedition.
And yet you do hear about them when these things go wrong. I guess things went wrong in the 50s and even earlier with explorers and that. So, but even with all the technology today, if you want to be an adventurer or an explorer, you still got to do everything right. Otherwise,
absolutely. Yeah, it's not easy, but they did it, and they made a good book out of it. Now, I don't want to forget the part about the language, learning the local language, because I'm always saying you should learn the local language when you travel. It's very important, etc., etc. Yeah, we've both got a couple of parts marked, haven't we? So
I'll try. Yes,
the one you mentioned before, I want to hear.
I'll bring that one up again. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, excellent. So Eric had this book, Notes on the Bashgali Kafir Language. It was like a book that he brought with him, and it was from even earlier, like 1901 or something crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it was not the best language resource. I mean, these days we have Duolingo or Google Translate or lots of things. But so he had this like even then already 50-year-old book, and it had like,
I think it sounded like an academic text as well. It wasn't even really a language guidebook of any kind. It was just like some kind of academic text on the study of the language, perhaps.
Yes. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's more, it describes it better. Exactly. I guess there were just not many resources for people traveling to Afghanistan in those days. But it's a couple of the phrases that I liked. Also, he said there was like these example phrases and answers and stuff. So one phrase was, I saw a corpse in the field this morning. So that might be useful, but I'm fortunate I've never needed to use that on my travels. No. And then weird kind of small talk sentences. So there was one, I have 9 fingers, you have 10. Why do you kick my horse? I will kick you. I mean, sentences that were possibly not needed.
There's quite a lot I don't even know how we pronounce them, but there's like a whole paragraph of them, and then I mentioned the one that you forgot, but I have an intention to kill you. To which the reply came, "You are a very kind-hearted man," and it's crazy. It's when language skills go wrong. Yes.
Absolutely.
And there's a few others in there. I think there's a whole paragraph or two.
Yeah. I've got one more that I liked. I wrote it down. And this was supposedly like a small talk kind of example, a conversation. One person says, "How many black spots are there on your white dog's back?" Answer, "He is a yellow dog all over and not spotted."
Not spotted, yes.
I don't know in what situation ever this kind of language would prove useful. But it did remind me when I've used Duolingo in the past to kind of refresh my languages. They do come up with unusual phrases sometimes. I remember when I was, not refreshing, but trying to learn a bit of Danish before my trip to Denmark, and it kept coming up with turtles. Like, I don't know. I feel like the programmers are just doing it to make me, I don't know, to bug me. But it was, things like, your turtles are swimming in the pond. And I'm like, I'm never going to need to say your turtles are swimming in the pond, or it reminded me of that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that kind of stuff, but dogs, turtles, although they don't think they rely on dogs and cats anymore, because that would be somewhat useful, and they pick a strange animal that you'll never need to know, but happens to swim or do something else or jump just to keep you on your toes. But
maybe that's all they're doing.
It is amusing. Yeah. And I'm just true. I was just going to say, and I think the bit there was another bit quite late in the book that I really, really liked, because I think this is probably why a lot of us actually travel, and that was he was reflecting and he said, in a world that has lost the capacity for wonderment, I found it very agreeable to meet people to whom it was possible to give pleasure so simply. And it's just like if you see when you're traveling and you meet usually children or even the adults, and often just having a conversation with them, or even just going to their restaurant or whatever, and usually back home they think nothing of it. It's just part of their day. But as a traveller, you can make a huge difference to someone's day, to the point that they go home and tell their family, "Oh, we had these people from Australia or from name the country here today, and they came and visited, and they did this, and they said hello, and did this with the children." So I think that was, and again, comparing from 50 odd years ago to today, that it still kind of rings true, especially
definitely
a lot of the countries I've been to. So I really like that one.
I really like that. And you're right, it actually holds true after all these decades. It's still still a really beautiful part of travel, I think, to be able to have those interactions and leave a positive impact, I suppose. You have mentioned also the very last line. Can you tell me about that? Because it's fun.
The last line. Yeah. So I mentioned, because I met this Thesiger guy, and he sounded like one of those British colonialists, the ones that are portrayed as a bit, like they're better than the natives, that kind of thing that you would have seen on movies and things like that. And of course, coming across another fellow, explorers, and in the author and his companion, and it's like you think they get along well, but as it said, they were the ground was a bit hard, so they started blowing up their airbeds, and this is after all their adventures they've been on.
They've had it pretty tough.
They had it pretty tough, and Thesiger just said to them, "This is the very last line of the book. They must be you two must be a couple of pansies. The ground was too hard to sleep on for them."
Yes, that's right.
I hope that hasn't ruined it for anyone, but yes,
I think it's funny no matter how many times you read it. It's a very I mean, it typifies the whole book that he's picked out all of these little moments along the way. Yes. But I was really intrigued to know, and I haven't been able to find out either way, whether he was taking a lot of notes along the way, because it seemed to me like they would have been so exhausted and often probably no light, or no energy, no light, no nothing. How did he get all these?
Because he did take photos. He obviously had a camera, because I don't know if your book had the photos in it, but mine had some photos, and I really wish there was more of them, actually, because the ones that were there were great, but I could have looked at a few more pages of photos. They were just so interesting. So, he was taking so he had camera, and this is what I'm thinking when they were carting all this gear around. I guess cameras in the 1950s, they would have been portable. So, but yeah, it depends on the style of camera. I think it would have been one of those brown boxy type things with a couple of lenses on it, and they would have needed it would have needed a stand to go on and probably some flashes to get a good photo. So a reasonable amount of equipment to cart around. So and then I think there was a telescope that was so sought after as well by the locals.
Yes, exactly.
Trade or have the telescope. So
and I just remember, with their equipment reminds me. What's the thing called that measures the altitude? Anyway, that piece of equipment, I've forgotten it, but then they measured it and then it fell. That was it. I remember that. I can't remember the line, but it was like, things you could tell the height by how far things fell. And then we did an excellent, of demonstration of that by actually dropping the thing that was measuring how high we were. So,
and I think then they also weren't even sure if they were using it properly.
Yes, they never seemed sure if it was actually giving them the right measurement anyway. Oh, can you imagine? I just think, these days we have all this technology that helps us out. Those sort of expeditions are still enormously difficult. And some of the descriptions of where they were, like going across these kind of ice shelves or sheer cliffs. And if it wasn't for the humor in the book, I would have just had to close my eyes and skip a few pages because it sounded terrifying. And hats off to them.
It's not something that I think I would attempt to do in my life. I think I get enough adventure in my life without climbing a mountain. Being the first. I never feel like I'm going to be the first to do something. Put it that way.
No,
second
same.
Or third, or even be the millionth person up there. That's fine by me.
Absolutely, my sense of adventure is a different kind of adventure. I think it's not not those crazy physical challenge adventures, but the adventure of culture and the adventure of people and all of that kind of adventure. That's my kind, and I am not going to be doing any Hindu Kush climbing anytime soon or ever.
No,
actually,
I'd like to go there, but I won't be doing the climbing.
Yeah, absolutely, yes, correct, yes. Wonderful. All right. Have you got any other last comments, Justin, before we wrap up the short walk in the Hindu Kush?
I think I did mention to you when you picked the book, and I said I had no idea, didn't even know who Eric Newby was, and so I went in without any kind of prejudice or bias, blind, and it was a really good book. So I'm glad. I guess that's what the book club's doing, isn't it? It gives us all a chance to read something we might not have initially picked up off the shelf because we didn't know anything about it. So, I think it was a good book. So even if people haven't finished reading it or haven't got it yet, definitely
worth a read.
The book and read it in your own time. You can always come back and comment on the thread in a month or two's time, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. Yeah, that's what I've been trying to do is kind of have a good variety. And so I think that was... I enjoyed. I read it like 2 decades ago and really had completely forgotten it because I've had this old copy since I don't know when. I was telling Justin before that it was from the 80s that it was actually printed, so it's pretty old. It was fun to come back and read it and reflect on it in light of all my travels and experience with the podcast and stuff. So now this month's book, in fact, so July's book is completely different. Have you got the excellent? Because at the moment I was just going to hold this up. I have the audio book. So there we go. I'm nearly finished. So I'm really ahead for usual.
I think I've only got up to sort of like just about to start their walk, I think, by the looks of it. So, but it's another book I may not have actually picked up because I didn't know anything about. So I'm glad we had the whole thread and got some ideas because.
Absolutely. In fact, Joan, who is commenting on this live, she was the one who suggested this one. And then since then, we've had so many people say, yes, it's a great book.
It's good, yes. I have noticed that. So,
it's really, it's funny because it is kind of another expedition in a sense, but a very different kind. So,
I already noted that the book opened with captivated me straight away because it was a scene from the middle of the trek. That was the first the epilogue or whatever was a hilarious thing from the middle of the book. And then I've gone, this is going to be a great book. just from reading that first page and a half.
Yeah. So. No, it's awesome. Yeah, and there's some humor in it as well, and lots of pathos and lots of it's a really in fact, I'm going to go and finish it after this call, so because I just can't stop. It's like totally stormy and loud and thundery here. It's crazy. It's definitely winter. I'm surprised that no one can hear it, but perhaps they can. Anyway, thank you, Justin, again for having such a interesting chat. Always enjoy these. So I would love to hear more from people who have read the Short Walk in the Hindu Kush. I meant to say, actually, Joan mentioned, she said the descriptions of the valleys and what grew in them was beautiful. Yes. It's so true.
Yeah. And I do, it brought back some memories of a trip I did to Central Asia, which is a little bit more, but some of the valleys in the, it's still kind of in that Himalayan mountain chain, but I forget the name of the actual mountains in Kyrgyzstan, and the valleys were just full of flowers and meadows, and I remember at the time it was all about, you might spot a unicorn, so the descriptions were quite apt, and I kind of brought a lot of memories back about that too. So
Yeah. No, I really did love all of those kind of descriptions. It was beautiful. So Joan's spot on there. All right. Well, we'll wrap up there. Thank you, everyone, for thinking about A Short Walk in the Hindu Kush. And we will be back next month to talk about The Salt Path by Raynor Wynn, which I am thoroughly enjoying. So thanks, Justin.
No worries. Thank you.
Lovely to chat, and I'll talk to you soon.
No worries.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.